All right, happy Sunday morning to you all. It is, it's what time? It's 9:45 in the morning, and the weather is really nice. It's beautiful out here. 71 sunny, feels like 71. Yes, indeed it does. Humidity has been just phenomenally low lately. In the mornings it's thick, of course, because it's cold, but we're getting like 25% humidity. That's just insane for Houston. Anywho, Kevin came down from Austin yesterday. We did the Coffman Thunder install on this during a live stream yesterday. I recorded some sound bites and sound pressure readings. Wasn't nearly as pro as I did the previous times on the Rebel with the tripods and all that, but I think we got some good measurements. The Thunder is about somewhere 4 to 7 decibels louder at idle and much louder on the top end, but it's not boomy. It sounds really good. The factory exhaust on this thing was so quiet. It was like 77 or 78 dB, super quiet. So anywho, I'm going to take it down the road. I'm going to repeat my test ride that I did on this almost exactly a year ago.
It sounds much nicer.
It sounds much better, and that suitcase is gone. I mean, that tucks in so nicely. It barely sticks out further than the passenger peg here. The other one was way out here. I mean, it was a chuggly suitcase. So
A boot could possibly hit that if somebody was sitting on it.
yeah, maybe. But they'd have to be drooping their heel way back, because you got to think with your leg up like this, you know, your knee is bent up, so your heel should be highly above that. But something to look out for if you have an Eliminator and you put a Thunder on there. Make sure you tell your passenger not to, you know, rest their heel down on that, because they're going to melt their shoes right under your exhaust. Anywho, I've also got a radio with me this morning. We're going to test the range on this, the BTEC UV Pro. I'm going to go 3 or 4 miles down the road over here to my normal testing ground and see if Kevin can hear me. It's not line of sight. We got a bunch of crap in the way, but we'll see how it goes. Alrighty. Neutral. Oh yeah, that Coffman sound. I love it. He just went and filled it up, so I'm not low on fuel like the last test ride. So, off we go. Oh, he's got his clutch adjusted different than it used to be. It's way out to the outside now. Love the Coffman sound. He adjusted the angle on his floorboards too, so now you can either get toe under the shifter or use the heel shifter on there that he's got. He said that these T-Rex floorboards had a lot of rattling, you know, metal on metal and vibration and everything, so he put some little pads underneath the folding portion so they didn't rest flat down on the metal. That was a good idea. Gave it a little bit of cushion, a little noise reduction. Gotta get used to the clutch engagement. It's all the way out here, almost at the stop. My son took this around for a little rip last night. He loves it. He said the engine personality is very similar to his 500F, which would be the same as my 500X, but it's definitely revier, you know, higher RPM. They feel like they've got about the same amount of torque, this versus the CB500 series, but it's definitely revier, more lively up top than the 500 is. I don't know why. It could just be the sound or, you know, overall engine character, but it's definitely revier. Now, I could probably, you know, compare RPM and stuff like that and look at cruising speeds and all that, but just from ear and butt feel, it's probably about 1,000 RPM higher than the 500F would be at any given road speed. So it's shorter geared to coincide with the revier engine. This is the engine from the Ninja 400. It's just been stroked a bit, if I remember right. I don't think it's been, the bore has been increased, but it's definitely stroked to give it 452 cc's or something like that. Don't quote me. It's got the T-Rex windshield on here. I don't remember if that was on there during the last test ride or not. T-Rex frame sliders, and I think he doesn't have the axle sliders. It's got a cap on that side, nothing on this side. I don't know if that's factory or if that's a T-Rex. I'm not sure. It just sounds and it feels like it idles higher, revs higher. It's just a busier engine. It's not a bad thing. It's just different compared to the 500 series Hondas. The ratios are closer on the transmission too. It feels like just a little bit. I'd have to pull up the gear ratio tables between the two power plants and figure out what the real difference is, but it definitely feels like the ratios are shorter, especially between 4th, 5th, 6th. They feel much closer. They're a little bit more spaced out on the Honda. He was wanting to install his SpeedoDRD healer to fix this speedometer optimism. It reads 5 or 6 miles per hour high. We got so far as to tearing it down. We disconnected the rear ABS sensor, and that's where the speedometer gets its speed sense. But I was kind of cautioning him against cutting the factory harness because we do have to interrupt the wire. So he's going to order a generic or universal Kawasaki harness from that company, so he doesn't need to cut anything, because if you cut anything, you're going to void your factory warranty. If you cut it on the speed sensor side, you could always replace the speed sensor side, but if you cut it on the harness going back to the bike, yeah, you're definitely going to void your warranty. So cruising at 60 indicated, that means I'm going 55 actual, and the Coffman's is not obnoxious at all. I love these Coffman exhausts. They're throaty and a little bit boisterous sounding, but they're not boomy or droning, at highway speeds. It definitely sounds more like a motorcycle now. It was too quiet before. You could hear, it sounded like more cam chain and front engine noise than you could hear exhaust. The exhaust was overly quiet. But again, that's always a personal preference thing. How do you feel about noise? Do you want to hear your engine, or do you want silence? It just depends on what you're after. I'll come over here to my speed test road and park and see if Kevin can hear me. It's definitely got more pull up high than the 500s do. Overall speed, I think they're about the same, but it keeps pulling up high in the revs, where the Honda kind of falls off a little bit. Now the engine's broken in, I don't feel so guilty about ragging it. Kevin always tells me, good, tear it up, ride it like you stole it, but I'm always leery about doing that on other people's bikes or cars, If it's not mine, if I don't own it, I don't want to abuse it. This thing rides really nice. I do like the feel of it. When I rode it the first time, I noticed that it kind of had a tendency to wander a little bit. The front wheel felt like it was wandering. I don't know if that was related to tire pressure or if it's just, difference in the feel of these tires, but it feels a little bit more planted this ride than it did on that first one. So, I don't know, we can chalk that up to maybe tire pressure. The rear suspension is too soft though, no two ways about it. Kevin has this preload cranked all the way up to maximum on the rear springs, and it still wallows a bit. When I sit down on it, it really scrunches down, and I don't weigh much. I'm about 165, maybe 170 soaking wet with all of my riding gear on. So the back of this thing is a little undersprung. So he's shopping for replacement shocks. He's looking at Olin's, but they're crazy expensive. And he's got a couple of emails and calls out to YSS to see if they have a fitment for it that works. And they're busy here today. I wonder what's going on. All right. Yep, so the second one. Yeah, I'm reaching for 7th gear. Isn't that 7th gear? It's a little buzzier than the Hondas. I think up gearing this, putting +1 front tooth or front sprocket on it, up 1 tooth would help a lot. It's not going to really account for a huge amount of engine revs, but you know, generally speaking, from like a 14 to a 15 or a 15 to a 16, you're looking at about 6%, 6.25%, something like that. And so reduction in engine RPM, and if your speed sensor is on your countershaft sprocket, and this guy is doing it the wrong way. If you're running, dude, you need to be on that side of the road, not this side of the road. Walkers, runners, you need to be in opposing. Anyway, back to the task. This bike isn't picking up its speed off the countershaft sprocket, so it wouldn't matter either way. It's getting it off the rear wheel ABS ring. But that slight reduction in engine RPM just, you know, eases my sense of mechanical sympathy, you know. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Ooh, I like the pops. Make sure nobody's back here, and I'll do some rips. I need to try to hail Kevin on the radio, see if he can hear me from out here. I get past these buildings. This is right where I was doing my Rebel speed and sound tests after the Coffmans. Okay, this should be line of sight to my house, minus the trees. So, let's see what we get. I keep hitting that signal, but I'm not canceling it. Okay, let's see what we get here. I'll use my amateur call sign on on GMRS. Volume's all the way up. All right, so we're on GMRS 17. I'm not sure what freak that is on this programming, but anyway. Check, check, radio check. I don't think he can hear me. Check, check, radio check. And I'm not using a proper GMRS call sign, so you guys just don't flame me. I know about all the sad hams out there. I am not one of them. I don't know if he's on a high power channel or a low power channel. So yeah, we're just going to call this a fail, and I'll go back. We'd have to do a different range test. And I don't know how you can cut squelch on these things anyway. Go to monitor mode, any of that. I haven't looked at the manual, so yeah, that's right. I will take a picture here at the park, not in the handicap sign, avoiding more flames. This ought to work. I'll go back 2 spots. Keep the handicap sign out of view. So many social justice warriors out there. It's a little dark. I'll have to take it from the other side. photo. Kicked something. That's a good shot. Let's get just the bike and the exhaust. Okay, get on back. He's going to ride back to Austin, so can't be off diddling around with his bike too long. Okay then. Might be able to use the GPS on the camera here to approximate some 0 to 60 times. And I'm riding in tennis shoes today, yes. No safety warrior flaming, please. So I'll do the starting point that I was doing with my Rebel. I set up my camera and my mic right there on that little corner. So let's see if we can get a launch and not mousetrap it or dump it. It's not my bike. Pretty good. It's definitely revier than the Hondas, I'll say that. Hey, neutral. That's one thing I don't like about Kawasaki's. Everybody loves that feature about it's so easy to find neutral. Yeah, sometimes when you don't want to. Nope, no 7th gear. It's like my XT250. I'm always reaching for a 6th gear on that thing because it's only got a 5-speed. You get it up to 50, 55 and it's busy. It's very busy. So let's do a 6th gear roll on here from an indicated 60, which should be a 55 actual. Okay, whack it. Up to an indicated 85. Not bad. Top gear, of course. You know, not down gearing to get better acceleration. Surprisingly, there are not very many exhaust pops on this thing, so that means the fueling is pretty spot on. Now this Coffman slip-on is it's just a slip-on, it's just a muffler, so ouchie, that got whacked. The catalytic is retained in the mid-pipe down there, so this is just a muffler, and it should not affect your air-fuel mixture too much. If you go with a free-flow intake of some kind, then yeah, it can add enough air that the computer might not be able to compensate for it, and you could end up running a little bit lean. But generally speaking, if you change either the intake or the exhaust, not both, then you don't have to do a retune or a reflash or anything like that. Yeah, with the windscreen on it, it's not bad for a little highway cruiser. I think it would be a great commuter. I do think it needs a +1 front sprocket though. That would reduce some of the buzzy nature. Of course, these floorboards on here, you're going to feel more vibration through the chassis and all that, but I can feel the same vibration, you know, the seat, handlebars, floorboards. It's a buzzy engine. On a sport bike, you know, you're kind of expecting that. And this thing from the factory is going to have the regular foot pegs on it, rubber topped, so that reduces the felt vibration in your feet. But I still feel it in the bars and in the seat and the tank, you know, when my knees are against the tank here. So just know that if you're shopping these, the ergonomics on it are fantastic. The handling is very neutral, you know, cruiser-esque. It's not, I would say it's closer to a standard bike than the cruiser as far as its handling feel.
So it's a good neutral platform. I'm not a tall guy. Kevin is, you know, 6 foot, 6'1". I'm 5'6", 5'7", 5'7" with, you know, boots on, whatever. It fits me just fine, and it fits him surprisingly well. He's not, you know, cramped leg position or anything like that on it. And you know, it's a great bike. I like it. If I didn't already have the Rebel, I might consider adding one of these to the stable, just because it feels so light. I mean, the center of gravity on it is crazy low. It's not heavy at all. It feels like it weighs 100 pounds less than its published weight. It's a strange sensation. You won't understand until you sit on one and flop it back and forth, you know, sitting still. It's just so light compared to the Rebel. Oh my God. My Rebel 1100, that thing's huge. Now the Rebel 500 still feels more top heavy than this does. The Rebel 500 feels about 40 pounds heavier than this. Now I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it feels 40 or 50 pounds heavier, and it's, you know, that center of gravity is higher. So my Rebel 1100 now, it's well over 100 actual pounds heavier, and it feels like twice the weight of this thing, because just that mass and the inertia. I'm not saying the Rebel's a pig, but it's heavy. It's heavy. 508 pounds or something like that. Yeah, so I think for anybody that wants to get one of these as a, you know, back road tour or commuter or something like that, a windscreen, obviously a throttle lock like he's got on here, Go Cruise, are going to be mandatory. The rear shocks need help. That's my biggest gripe about this bike. The rear shocks are just too soft, period. So finding a good aftermarket company out there like YSS or something that's reasonably priced, and we're not talking about $1,200 to upgrade the suspension on a $6,500 bike, you know, make it a little bit more palatable. But otherwise, yeah, great machine. I like it. I like it a lot. Back to the garage of despair. All right, well, thanks for joining for this short test ride part 2, Redux, 1 year later. And I like it. Great machine. Rear suspension and a +1 front sprocket. I think would be perfect for me, but your mileage may vary. Catch y'all later.